Welcome to another episode of AutisHim, Black Fathers in Autism. I got my brothers next to me, Nick, Lonnie, Trav. Hey, everybody. I know I say this a lot, man, but we got a very special guest with us. My brothers met this brother at the BCBA Summit, a summit I did not get to attend, as I keep saying. And now, oh my gosh, I feel so bad about it, but it's all good, man. I had some things going on. But yeah, they met this brother there, man. And even though I wasn't there, I got a chance to actually live stream his session. And man, I tell you, I'll say this, man. I don't think enough people talk about, because he talks about a lot of things, but one of the things that stuck out to me during his live session was he talked about being yourself, right? Not playing that code switching game, that political game that I think that we all play sometimes because we just kind of are programmed to, because we may have seen our parents do it, our grandparents do it. There's definitely a lot of history behind that, right? And that stuck out to me because I know I struggle with that sometimes, being myself in those corporate settings. The great thing about it is that being myself has gotten me far, but also being myself has, not got me so far in certain regards. It's a work in progress, but this brother is, very well known, great dude, 12 years of experience in ABA. He is a BCBA since 2019. He is also the CEO and founder of the Parent Trap. And this man does have a podcast called the Parent Trap. Our brother Nick was on there as well. Please give a strong round of applause for Michael Reynolds Jr. Give it up for him.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks for that introduction. Yeah, man, you missed out. That's all I could say. That September event was fire, but the good thing about it is it's going to be annual. So I look forward to, meeting you specifically in person, our next event. But yeah, man, it was a great time, a great fellowship overall on just connecting both inside and outside of ABA, just with like-minded individuals. And so a time was had, came back, lit the fire, started my podcast. Nick blessed me with, my first ever guest. And just kept the ball rolling after that. So I appreciate you guys reaching out to me to join your platform as well, too, just to spread the word.
Absolutely, man. We definitely, I truly believe, and I know all of us on this call believe this, man. We want to uplift each other. We don't want to drag each other down. Man, with our guests, I like to start from the beginning, man. So you are a certified BCBA, man. Let's talk about the origin story. How did you get into that?
Yeah, so origin story is pretty short and sweet for me, which is kind of relative to people who start within ABA. So I grew up out here. I'm from California, grew up in Riverside, California. Was decent at football, but I didn't take my grades too serious. And so I ended up at junior college, got a scholarship out to Colorado, played out there for redshirted 1 year. So played out there for 2 years, was out there for maybe 3 or 4 years on scholarship. And then my last year, I didn't have any eligibility, but I still needed credits to graduate. And so I started taking a children's psychology course. I kind of fell in love with it. That was the intro to like Pavlov and operant conditioning and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, like this rings a bell, right? This all makes sense. And so my psychology professor, she was like, hey, there's an internship in Florida at Florida International University if you want to go, and it's paid. I was like, okay, well, enough said. Like, I'll get paid. I'll live in Florida. Like, it's all you hear about. And so I was like, let me go out there for the summer and work and get some experience and just, see where the wind takes me. And so went out to FIU, was out there for 4 months working with children on the spectrum. Obviously, back then it was called Asperger's. So it was a very high functioning Asperger's children, OCD, ADD, ADHD, kind of a plethora, but it was like a summer camp vibe. So I would go to campus for maybe 4 or 5 hours. I had my little 6 to 8 kids. We'd rock it out for the day, and then they would go home and kind of rinse and repeat. And so I was like, okay, this was cool. Like, I love the kids I'm working with. They're dope. They're different. They're interesting. Every day you definitely get something brand new, which was good because it wasn't that it broke up that monotony of like your regular, cubicle 9 to 5. And so after that, I was like, Miami's too expensive. The program is over. So I drove all the way back home to Cali, And the first company that I signed on with actually partnered with FIU. And also, I'm 6'1", 220 at this time. And they're like, oh, you're a great candidate for obviously our most aggressive and severe cases. And so pretty much they signed me on the spot. And so I started in 2012, got my master's right away. I want to say maybe 2016. Went to Capella University, did the flex path, did all that fun stuff. And then it's funny because I was doing an RBT assessment the other day for one of the RBTs in my center, and I looked up my BACB profile, and I was like, oh shit, like I haven't looked at this in a while. And so I actually took the BCBA exam in 2017, and I failed. And so obviously at that time, you had to wait, I want to say at least like 3 to 4 months to retake it again versus now where it's pretty instantaneous. And so obviously I had to wait that 3 months. And then the second time I looked, I took it in 2018 and I failed. And then took it in 2019 and obviously I passed. And so that's been kind of like just my path overall. Like I said, I was lucky to find this right out of college. I know most people kind of stumble upon this or it's like, I'll just figure it out. But literally once I met that first kid in that first case, which I'm still in contact with today in that family, it's been something that's really kind of just stuck with me. And I've never thought about anything else since I started.
That's amazing that you found a like in something and you just kinda, went with it. I know that wasn't my path. I totally did the total opposite and had to go a few places a few times and then end up figuring it out later, but no, that's amazing that you just kinda dived into it and kept going. So, think like you about to say something, sorry.
No, I was just going to ask a question because as Mike has a bunch of experience, and so with that experience, what misconceptions do people have about ABA, and do you believe, or that you believe are harmful towards not just ABA as a practice, but even like working and helping with families and stuff? Like,
Yeah,
what
I think
misconceptions are there?
the biggest misconception that comes to mind immediately is that we're like I would say daycare providers, right? I think they see you can Google your YouTube ABA and you'll see a young lady sorting colors or playing blocks with a young child or playing tag or going up and down the slide, right? They make it this kind of euphoric, like we're all having fun here, like it's this we're here. In actuality, yes, that is a part of it, but there's also, like you said, the misconception where it's like, okay, between takes, he punched her in the face, he spit, he ran away, he did this and he did that, right? So, as empathetic and compassionate sometimes as we want to be in ABA, and as I think the field is kind of yearning for, we also have to be realistic when it does come to these interfering and these maladaptive behaviors because shit gets real really fast, right? Like I said, when I first started, my first client he grew up now, but back then, nonverbal client, highly aggressive. We went at it almost every session. He tried to like rip my shirt, take me down. Like we're sweating bullets. I'm using QBS strategies, assaultive behavior management, all this. And we're trying to work on an AAC device that he doesn't like, he doesn't want to use. He's a biter. So it's like, yeah, I wanted to play Legos, right? I wanted to have fun and color and do all this stuff that we see. But in actuality, like I need to get this behavior at a sustainable level before I'm even able to interact and teach with him.
Mike, real quick, man. So I something you said that keeps sticking out to me, and it makes sense when you said it, but in my mind, I'm like, dang, I can't believe they did that to him. So we already know it's not a lot of black males in this BCBA space. You said when you first, when you signed on to the company, they automatically said, "Oh, he's 6'1",
Yeah,
200 some pounds. He can handle this client." Does that happen a lot in the industry?
I would say, yeah. I would say for the most part, at least when I've heard, at least I know I went to a conference maybe 3 years ago and there was an RBT panel. And I want to say it was BABA back then. And there was an RBT panel and another guy, I would say similar size, maybe even a little bit bigger than me, but we shared the same story where it's like, okay, big guys, black guys, whatever it may be, we're going to throw you guys here to this case because we know the field is predominantly female. And so when it does get highly aggressive or those severe cases, some female staff can handle themselves, but that burnout happens a little bit quicker when that aggression is continual on a day-to-day basis. And so obviously just off top, right, and off site, they're like, okay, he's a football player. He can deal with it. He knows what to do, how to do, and let's just throw him on there right now, and we'll figure out the rest after that.
Yeah, that's crazy. They put you in that box. I'm a bit shocked too because my son's ABA experience, it was predominantly white women. Like you said, you go into the facility, a lot of like colorful like mats and stuff. I'm like, hey, am I paying for Sky Zone or to actually help my son here? But like you said, in between this learning and everything, to your point, is very valid. Man, just first off, I want to give you your flowers. Of course, the session you had, one of the best ones I went to at the MBA, shout out to them. One thing that really stood out, man, your authenticity. Typically meet people, first impression is everything. One thing about you, you're like, I am who I am, and I got here because this is who I need to be to help others. So my question to you, Mike, is, sometimes that may come up to others like, who does this guy think he is? He doesn't think he has to fit this narrative. So how do you use your authentic self to help parents understand necessarily the tools and guide them in a way to help their child progress while their child is on the spectrum?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Yeah, my mentor told me back in 2015, she's like, Mike, you're you wherever you go. And so I say that almost at every session that I have or at every conference that I speak at is that I'm going to be me, right? I don't know how to be anybody else but myself. But to make parents kind of get on board or to kind of, I would say, connect the gap, I show them first because I can say this or I can look this type of way. Like I said, I'm 6'1". I live in Riverside, California, which is an affluent white neighborhood. I have, full tattoos all over the place. And so there's also this stereotype, okay, cool, big black guy, athlete, like, okay, he's probably just here for a little bit, like it's nothing serious. And I'm like, okay, let me show you. Right. And so let me show you that I can work with your son. Let me show you that I can be compassionate and empathetic, but also make progress. And so once parents see progress and they're like, okay, Mike knows what he's doing. Mike knows what he's talking about. Let me listen when he talks, or let me ask him some questions to get more clarity when he's not here to help us. Right. Or let me look over his shoulder and see how he's handling my child because my child's never done that before. So let me see how Mike does it. And so I'm able to replicate this once, my husband is home or once his siblings come home and the place is a disaster. Yeah, I show them first. I think obviously actions do speak louder than words. So if I came in the door and I'm like Skinner this and ABA this and antecedents and blah, 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 parents don't give a fuck about that. They're going to tune you out, 9 out of 10 times, right? But if you're like, okay, cool. Hey, Lonnie, what's going on? How can I help you today? And Dr. Lonnie's like, okay, cool. My son has been banging his head on the wall for the past week. Okay. Well, once Lonnie sees a decrease in head banging behavior, Lonnie's going to be like, okay, Mike knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. And so once Lonnie has that buy-in, it's going to be pretty much easy after that. So it's just that initial like gotcha moment. And once I gotcha, it's hard to let me go.
Do you see any differences in the acceptance of ABA demographically from families of color versus non-families of color? And has that changed over time?
I think culturally, obviously, in the Black households and African-American households, we have that, oh, he'll get over it. Let me give you something to cry about, right? Or, that baby's fine. Leave him alone. They'll be all right. Where it's like, no, they won't, right? This is something I spoke with one of my guests on my podcast. His name is Stacy McAllister. He was very proactive. And same thing with Nick when we talked about he and his wife were very proactive once they had an inclination of something might be wrong, right? It's not I'm going to wait and see and twiddle my thumbs because I think as parents here on this video call is we all know the power of early intervention, right? I know if we start early, the earlier the better. So if I had a kiddo that I started with at 2 years old or 3 years old, then it's likely that they will progress at a faster rate the earlier that we get to our children. But if I get a kiddo at 15 or 16, that's like 13, 14 years that I have to rewind and unpack where that behavior has already been more than likely solidified. And so I think the stereotype kind of within the community of they'll get over it or, they'll be all right or they're okay or it's just a phase. where it's not a phase, right? This is a lifelong diagnosis that at least look into it, right? That's what I tell families, that if you think something is wrong, let the professional tell you that nothing is wrong, right? I'd rather you guys be safe than be sorry. I know definitely, obviously in the white and Caucasian communities, they have more resources, right? And they have maybe more connections where they can, talk to a friend or get diagnosed or go to a physician really quick. Hispanic households, I want to say, are a little bit similar to African American households as well too. But I do think it is getting better, to what you mentioned, Dr. Lonnie. I think now with just the exposure and visibility of autism, the prevalence of it, and just think the overall just exposure. I think was it 2 days ago, there was an autism Barbie that just came out. I think it was this week. Yeah, like an autism Barbie came out. So that's just another pair of eyes for a young girl or young boy to be like, oh wow, what does that mean? What is autism? Well, that doll's cool, but why does it say autism or autistic? And the parents look it up and search it. And so that's another pair of eyes that can tell their friends about it or tell their teacher about it. And so I definitely think we are getting better at kind of identifying and isolating, autism as a diagnosis, and just the initial push for, hey doc, what's going on here? Where am I at? Keep it real. What's going on? Because like I said, the earlier intervention, the better.
So, Mike, first of all, thanks for telling me that. I didn't know there was a autism Barbie. I mean, that's kind of dope.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say like Monday or Tuesday, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, it
yeah,
just
no,
dropped.
that's really dope. I did not know that. So, for our listeners, if with your kids, go out there and get the autism
You're
Barbie.
right.
All right.
Spread the word.
Hey, so I know because I've been, watching your podcast, and like I said, I watched the trainings or the workshops you did at the BNBA Summit, and I know that one of the things that you talk about a lot is parent training, especially the deficits that are, that are the things that are not happening in parent training, right? And so I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I know for my wife and I, when our son first got diagnosed, and the fellas know this about my life and my story, where I went through like a roller coaster of emotion, right? When my first diagnosed, and we got him in ABA. And so, it was an uphill battle because me being me, I'm coming in from, ground zero. So I know nothing of nothing. I'm very hesitant to do things. My wife was the total opposite. She was like, no, we got to do this. We got to do this now. We got to do it for our son. And I was just like, I hear you, but I'm still back in square one of the diagnosis. Like I
Yeah,
just didn't like understand it. And
yeah.
so we had a wonderful BCBA, and we hate when she left because she actually left to go open up her own facility in Florida. But she
Okay.
was amazing. And one of the things that she did for us was parent training. The
Mhm.
parent training was very, very pivotal, not only to my son's development, but I would say for my wife and our relationship, because she made us communicate. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the communication was always sunshines and rainbows, because it wasn't, but we were communicating something that we were not doing before. And so, can you speak to just parent training and how pivotal that is, not only in your child's development, but just for your relationship for you and your partner?
Yeah, literally. I'm going to take this a few ways. So I think the first way I'm going to take it is when Dr. Lonnie was talking, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for you, that initial diagnosis and that the time it took you, I think you mentioned, was about 2 years till you kind of accepted and were like, okay, let me do something. Right? And so when Dr. Lonnie said that, that brought me back to one of my slides in the presentation. It's called, I think it's called The Levels of Grief, or I think it might be called The Levels of Grief, where I was with a company and I was working with a supervisor, and she also had a son on the spectrum. And she said there's different levels of like acceptance and denial, and but it's cyclical, like it never stops. And when she told me that, I was like it never stops. She was like, no, like I go through these cycles and these periods all the time. And that was something of like a light bulb moment to myself, where I'm like, okay, I need to adjust how I interact or my delivery when it comes to parents. Not that I was incorrect or wrong prior to, but it just gave me another tool to my tool belt because I was able to understand where the parent was coming from in that moment, or for in that quarter of their life, or in that period of time. Right. And so with that information, I just added it to my knowledge, to my bank, and I would just check in with parents on a more emotional level. for the most part with parent training, we're so quick to be like, hey, give me ABC data. Let me know what's going on. Let me attack this, this, and this. But if I'm like, hey, Travis, how'd your weekend go, bro? They're like, oh, man. Are you Detroit Lions? You guys like the Lions up there? What do you guys like? What team?
But yeah, we Lions. Yeah, we
Okay,
Lions.
Yep,
Lions.
Detroit
So if I'm
Lions.
like, hey,
Yep.
how the Lions do? Right? Or well, what's up with, Dan Campbell and Sonic and Knuckles and all those, right? And we're like, oh, okay. And we're just shooting the shit, right? Barbershop talk. Travis is more likely to be inclined to give me more information, or I'm going to get more information from Travis just by something not even ABA related, right? And so that's another indirect assessment that I'm absorbing that Travis doesn't even know about. But I'm like, okay, cool. Travis said that, he was doing this, his son did this, or his wife did this, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just absorbing all this information just with normal speech and normal interactions. And then the last part, like you mentioned, Tyrone, is that's actually it might be a little I don't know if you want to say cynical, but I like it when the parents communicate and they come to that fork in the road because they have to address it, right? So for instance, one of my first parent trainings, I was like, hey, what's an issue that you guys have? And the mom was like, tying shoes. And I looked at the dad, and the dad was like, oh, well, he does it with me independently. And then I looked at the mom, and the mom was like, well, I do it for him all the time. And so like I just backed up and I was just like, you guys figure it out, right? It's exactly, it's for you guys. That's telling you guys that you guys are on two different wavelengths right now. I don't care how you guys fix it, but it needs to be fixed if that's something that you guys want to progress or move towards in the future. And so when they do have that communication breakdown, or when I do see a father go upstairs and then the mother's overwhelmed or stressed, that tells me something right there. Or when I call dad downstairs and Nick and I had a 45-minute conversation about this, if dad is an ex-athlete or has this vision for their child and the child is going completely in a different direction, has no interest in sports, just wants to line up their toys, how can I make ABA make sense to the family? And how can I have dad and son connect, or mom and son connect, or dad and daughter connect? Where can I find a link that, okay, cool, my son's probably not going to play football, but he loves Donald Duck. So, hey, can I do a Donald Duck shirt? Can I buy some Donald Duck toys and sit down with him? Can I have 11 Donald Duck players and play football and line them up with my son, right? So I'm still interested with football, but my son is super interested because it's Donald Duck and Disney, right? So how can I get parents to make that connection that, yes, there's a diagnosis. Yes, you guys are going through your different cycles. It's understandable, but what's our end game? What's our big picture, right? Like where do you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months? And I try to highlight that for them and then kind of just squeeze everything in between during our daily or monthly interactions.
Wait, before
Yeah.
anybody else go, I'm sorry, I got to follow up. I apologize. So
Yeah. Get too good.
just a
Get too
follow-
good.
No, it's really because I'm just gonna say this, man. Thank God for my wife. Like my wife just having the foresight to say, listen, I need you in this, and just pushing me every day to just be a better father, right? What I want to ask is just regarding fathers, right? Black fathers, brown fathers, fathers of color. You've been in the field for quite some time and you've interacted with many different families, man. When you see the fathers, right? And like you said, you have your way of just communicating with them that's not straightforward of being professional. Like you want to get to know them, right? As individuals. Are you seeing, when it comes to fathers of color, are you seeing more results than you've seen when you first started? Are you seeing a shift where more fathers of color are being involved in the conversation? It may not be easier, but there's more of fathers coming to the table and being more present and being involved. And like you said, grief, it's always going to cycle, it's going to be there, but it does get a little bit easier when you're able to have brothers like yourself that have been in the field for a long time, to understanding how to communicate. Are you seeing more fathers of color just being more involved?
Definitely. I think I'm definitely seeing, at least with the families that I do interact or work with, like I said, if it's just exposure and visibility, or I think just this generation, I think our generation has also turned the corner. I mean, I don't want to too political and stuff, but we know mass incarceration and the crack epidemic and all that were, our grandfathers and fathers weren't present in our lives. So now we're generationally changing that. And so this cycle, a new generation of fathers, we're going to be there no matter what, diagnosis or not a diagnosis. I'm going to be in my son's life. And so now that a diagnosis is present, I think we have much more resolve, and we have a lot more information now to get a solution, or not a solution, but to get information on what's really going on. And so, like I said on episode 2, I talked with Stacy McAllister, who was a young Black father that I worked with his son maybe 5 or 7 years ago, and he ended up starting a 511 sports program that's all inclusive to the community. He also holds, I want to say, like a parents' night out in Long Beach and Compton, all these kind of Black African American neighborhoods or cities where, okay, I see Stacy. So I went to high school with Stacy. Oh shit, I didn't know Stacy had a son on the spectrum. Oh shit, like let me reach out to Stacy and get more information. So I think definitely just with, like I said, that exposure and visibility overall, parents are definitely more locked in. Our Black fathers, Hispanic fathers, I think we're definitely kind of tuned in more so than we were, or that we have been previously.
I got a couple questions, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna just do one at a time.
Yeah.
So, first question is, with your experience working with parents, are you in a position to train other BCBAs, RBTs on working with parents? Because that information and how to work with parents and understanding the environment to which that BCBA or RBT is walking or stepping into is vital. And I know there's the book training, but there's the experience training that the book doesn't talk about, that you have, especially with the results that you've been receiving from the parents that you're working with. So are you like training other people? And if you are, why isn't that like a national training for all BCBAs?
I would say indirectly, my current position as an associate clinical director at my company, it's something that, and for the audience out there, parent training is probably the most underutilized code within ABA, no matter the company, right? I think it's under like 20%, right? So it's not happening across the board, no matter your location, your city, your state, your team. It rarely happens at a mastery criteria or an acceptable criteria, which we say 70 to 80% of the time. So parents training overall is underutilized. So first, I try to get my teams above utilization, right? Just show up, just call, just check in, right? Let's get those numbers up first. And then, like you said, Nick, I can jump into, okay, cool. I'm going to shadow you. I'm going to observe. Let me hop on a call with you and just see how you interact and how you talk to a family, right? Yeah, I know mom's been a bit of a headache, right? And she's put you through the ringer, but let me see how you bounce back and talk to her next month. So I think the training that I do, I don't do as much as I would like, because obviously I have other things on my list and on my agenda that I have to take care of. But when I'm present and in the moment, I'm definitely more hands-on. I'm definitely give that kind of immediate feedback, or sometimes I'll just let, the other BCBAs or supervisors kind of just talk and just follow up after them. If I see them kind of, heading off the track a little bit, I'll try to redirect them, or nudge them in the right direction to make sure that, clinically we're kind of all on the same page. So I want to make it something national. I don't know if I have the bandwidth or capacity right now, but I know we talked about it in September that it's something that, you kind of stoked a fire in me. So it's definitely something that's on my list.
And my last question, so as a Black father, how can we partner better with Black BCBAs, especially Black male BCBAs, so that that parent story becomes a part of the interaction, the learning that happens inside of the BCBA atmosphere, because there is still that interaction that is necessary. I think with your experience, your background, you're a key person that could possibly answer that question. Is like, how can like the information from a parent be taken more seriously in the development of BCBAs, in your spaces where BCBAs are the parents of children that, parents have children on the spectrum? How can the partnership build like this? Help me mentally kind of like suss that out, because I think that we're talking in silos, especially at some of these conferences that an educator may have. Like, you have these education conferences, BCBAs aren't there, parents aren't there. You'll have a parent get together, BCBAs aren't there, educators aren't there. You have a BCBA, conference to get together, parents aren't there and educators aren't there. So how can we get this wraparound service, wraparound mentality, where all parties that are interacting with the children on the spectrum can learn from each other and build a coalition?
Yeah, we just got to pull up. We just got to show up, right? Like you said, I never knew parents went to ABA conferences till I saw you, Lonnie, and Travis. And I was like, oh shit, parents are here? Like what? Like that, it didn't make sense until I like heard it. And then to see you guys on a panel, like I wasn't front row, but I was locked in, right? Like I was like, let me get the information that I say that I'm an expert on, right? That's my area of expertise. So let me go to the source. And so I think coordination of care, right? As BCBAs, we always think of SLPs or OTs and this. So let's coordinate care, like you said, as a wraparound type of thing. Let's show up to those educational conferences. Let's start a parent conference, right? And let's have teachers and educators and SLPs and OTs attend, right? So I think, once again, exposure and visibility, and just showing that we are in these spaces that make things happen a little bit more quicker, and we get out of that silo. Like Black men in behavior analysis, obviously there's only 4% of us in the field. Even less of that is men. I think we're at 1 to 2% of Black male BCBAs. And so that is, what's our count now? Maybe in the hundreds. I think out of the thousands of BCBAs that are there, we're in the hundreds, right? And so if we want to expand those numbers, let me see how I can network and resource maybe with my local college. Like I can connect with the football team. I'm gonna be honest, a lot of y'all ain't gonna make the league. I thought I was gonna make the league. I thought I was the best. I thought I was gonna be, at least a 5th or 6th round draft pick, but I didn't even make it, through the process, right? So the stats say that a high school athlete has a 4% chance, and even less than a 1% chance when they're in college. So you're the best of the best, right? So even me, I'm thinking, okay, how can I talk to maybe my alma mater or my JUCO and let them know, like, hey, do you guys know anybody that's on the spectrum? Do you guys know what autism is? Well, okay, cool. So I'm gonna be honest, a lot of you guys aren't gonna make the league, but here's things that we can work and affect our community. We can work with the underserved population. We can work with children with different diagnoses and different abilities. Here's my number. Hey, let's connect. If you guys make the league, hey, more power to you. But if you don't, here's your plan B. And I'll be right here because I know the pipeline. I've done it. I've been there before. And so, like I said, I think mentioned with Nick and with everybody that I kind of talked to is each one teach one, right? So if I tell one person and that one person tells 2 people and those 2 people tell 4 people, right? Exponentially, we're just going to grow, and that silo is just going to burst open because we have so many people interested or just informed on what's next or what's to happen or what's to come within our field.
Definitely. Yeah, Mike, you said it well. I can resonate with that just as far as having a reality check, understanding like, hey, you may have these certain visions or things that you want, but it's not always going to happen that way. So just be prepared. I just want to speak to you guys. Of course, I've shared this with my brothers and I'm going to share with the audience as well. I had a vision for my son where I'm a big sports guy. I want to get my children in sports if possible, but my oldest isn't as interested. It's more so he does it for bonding time with me, which I appreciate, but I don't force it on him as much, whether it's watching
Yeah.
the Lions, watching the Pistons. Shout out my Pistons. Number 1 in the East. Let's go. It just
Yeah.
depends. So to that point, I've taken, like you said, some kind of advice before you gave the advice, sparking his interest, investing in it. He's big on music now. Bought him a piano just this Christmas. I was telling the guys I got him a soundboard to make beats. If he the next Metro Boomin, I'm cool with that. Like, I want him to be interested and invested in things that are gonna necessarily drive his interest. So not so much a question, but just a shout out for bringing those things up, because especially as Black men, fathers, we could be a bit stubborn where it's like, hey, it's important for them to do exactly what we want them to do, not ask too many questions because we know what's best as dads. Whereas more so, we have to take that time to hear them out, but also talk to like peers and know that, hey, there are other individuals who are going through this too. And if they're telling you as well, like, hey, take a chance to listen to your child, spark their interest. That's how you grow the relationship, and they'll thank you for that as they get older.
So, Mike, I have 2 questions. The first, what? I think it was
Ask
like
all
grab
the
the mic.
questions.
He think I'm about to just
Ask
go.
all.
No, it's the questions
I
because,
get a moment.
and this is just speaking from my own experience, and I know my brothers on this call have had similar experiences. We were very blessed with our ABA experience. Like, we had a woman of color, Black woman to be specific, who got it. Like I said, parent training was very, very important to her. It was very pivotal, and she was 100% right. And she took care of our son. He also had an RBT who was a Black man. And so representation is very important in my household. So for him to be able to see that it was spot on. So we've had the best experiences but when she left, we also saw the other side of it. It wasn't so great. Okay. So my first question is, when you have families that are looking for ABA services, what are some of the things they should be looking for to make sure that their child is getting the best service possible? Because anybody can put up an advertisement. They can say, we have the best facility, we have the best RBTs, the best BCA, et cetera, et cetera. But what are some key things that maybe that's not on the website, that when you do visit a facility, that you can kind of point out and say, that's a red flag, that's a red flag? Because there's a lot of families out there, for one, when their child gets first diagnosed, they have no idea what ABA is, right? They don't know what a BCBA is. They don't know what an RBT is. So what are some things that you can just to give advice to family and say, hey, make sure you're looking for this, that, and the third, because you don't want to put yourself and your child in a very sticky situation?
Yeah. The first thing I would say would be research, right? Like you said, I don't know what autism means, or I don't know what level 1, level 2, level 3 means. So get your research, grab some resources, and just dive in, right? Because you're only doing yourself a disservice by just, this is the first company I see, let me put my child in here and see what, like, no, do your research, do your resources, check the ratings. The ratings are going to tell you a lot. Obviously, you're going to have some sour parents, you're going to have some sour staff that left, but kind of weed those out and see if it's just the majority or the minority that's giving the most positive or negative reviews, right? So you want to, do your research off top, I think, number one. Number two, as Black men in this call and within our community, you want someone to look like you. You want someone to get it. We call it cultural competency in ABA, but you want someone that's culturally competent to walk into your home and see, an MLK. Our grandmas had the MLK. They had Jesus on the wall, right? They had the plastic on the couch, right? So they get it, right? You want somebody that gets your family and gets the cultural undertones. When I say I'm gonna pop you in the mouth, that they're not literally gonna pop you in the mouth. That's just something they say, right? We can also adjust that language within ABA and make it a little bit more professional, or use something else or a different strategy, right? But I understand what you mean, Mom. But your son's not responding to that in the manner that we want. So let's adjust that language to get you to where you really want to go. I think that's the second part. And I would say probably the last part is just to understand that it's not always going to work out. Like, you're going to have a program or a manager or an RBT that's probably brand new. The thing that I come across here so much is the first things parents want, they're like, oh, but I want an experienced team. I'm like, ma'am, I'm going to be honest with you. The experienced team has a full caseload already because they're experienced, right? So you're going to have to start from the ground up. Obviously, you weren't experienced when you first started your job, right? So let's give our RBTs and supervisors some grace and understand that it's a work in progress. I'm the experienced one, so I'll go and I'll train and I'll assist, but that's not gonna take away from the experience that's needed to bump their head and get back up and not make that mistake again as they move on. So I do tell parents, have some grace. Let me try and train. Let the supervisor train the RBT. Let us get some experience, maybe 6 to 12 months. And if you're still not feeling it, then okay, then it's your prerogative to move on and either look for a new team or go to another company. So I'm quick to, give the parents what they want. If they want to transition and terminate, all right, we did what we could. I respect, what you're saying. And, I wish you the best moving forward. So I'm not going to beg and plead and do all this with you. If you say you want to bounce, all right, well, there's a parent that's been on the wait list for 6 months. I'll tag them in. So it's no kind of sweat off my brow or dirt off my shoulders when I do things like that, because, that's a part of the gig. I'm not a fit for everybody. My style isn't a fit for everybody. And so I understand that. And like I said, going back to the very top of being authentic, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Either, you kind of like my style or flow with me, or you, request somebody else or go someplace different.
Okay, no, I appreciate you saying that. And then my second question, kind of going off of that, for a family that has never experienced BCBA, or I'm sorry, experienced ABA, have no experience whatsoever, but they hear from other parents, hey, don't take them to ABA, it's conversion therapy. They say all the negative things about it, right? Because of maybe their experience or something they heard or read or whatever the case may be. Would you say to a new family that's getting into it for the first time, I mean, pretty much advocating for ABA, like what do you tell them if they come to you and say that, like, hey, I don't want my child to go through quote unquote conversion therapy?
For me, I'm straightforward, and I was like, "Hey, let's check the source. Where'd you hear that from?" And then we'll backtrack it, right? So I'm definitely gonna fact check you and see where it's from, see if it's a credible source. If it's your sister's cousin's friend's, baby daddy, like, oh, okay, well, that's not a trusted. I wouldn't say that's exactly a trusted source, right? But if it was, maybe from, your neighbor's daughter that's an ABA and you saw the process, right? Or you heard about it. Okay, well, I'm not here to change your mind, but I do think that I have some strategies and stuff that will work, right? Like, I'm not a salesman. I'm not going to sell you and pitch you ABA, but you did come to us, right? And here's what we offer. You're saying that you do have aggressive and severe behaviors. I was trained and I do have the experience to decrease those behaviors. So if you want to rock with me for 6 months, hey, let's give it a try. That's the first thing that I'll tell parents, is that ABA and life is trial and error, right? You're not going to get everything right the first time. So I'm going to make a mistake. You're going to make a mistake. Your son or daughter is going to make a mistake. My clinical team is going to make 1,000 mistakes, right? But if we get back on that horse and try riding again, we're eventually going to cross that line. And that, no matter if that takes 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, we're going to get to where we need to be when we're supposed to get there. And so I tell parents, like I said, I'm not going to sell you on a dream or this, and that, but let's take baby steps. And if those baby steps lead us into the right direction, then I don't see why we just can't keep going.
I have another question. I don't know if anybody else got another question they
Yeah.
want to ask.
I was gonna let Lonnie or Travis ask something.
Oh, no, I'm just kind of taking I'm not trying
got some
to. I
other
swear.
questions
I ain't
too.
never met him, so I'm just trying to, have a combo. Lonnie,
ahead,
Trey, y'all got a question?
I just had another question. Can you talk a little bit about, with my own son, I'm finding that it took us 2 years, 2.5 years to see significant progress as far as his reading comprehension. And I don't think parents realize your child at 9 is different at 12. They mature. So can you talk about some of the success you've had working with students as far as behavior and other progress, but also some challenges you've had and where parents fit in that?
Yeah. Progress is all relative, right? It's subjective, right? What I think is progress, you guys might think is progress. I just lost a family. I called the dad. The dad is like, hey, Mike, we're going to terminate services with you guys because my son didn't make any progress. And so obviously the father and the mother felt that what they had as the standard that we didn't meet. But to us and our reports, he made progress. It just wasn't toward the standard of what the parents had wanted. And so that just comes with pacing and understanding, right? That family's clinical team was newer. They were trying to get their footing. Parent training wasn't happening as frequent as we had wanted it. And so if that were the case, or if that were to happen, parents would have been like, hey, I want you guys to work on this a little bit more. Okay, cool. We can work on that. Or I want you guys to work on this a little bit more, right? And so if parent training were as frequent as intended, we would have nipped it in the bud and help that parent see, like, okay, cool, you turned because you didn't make this progress, but we didn't know that was what you wanted because our team didn't step up and our team didn't do what we were supposed to do. So we dropped the ball on that. I apologized on our behalf and I said, hey, you're welcome back here in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whenever you want. And you will get a better experience moving forward because I know that my team dropped the ball. I'm going to let them know it's going to be a company-wide thing, and that's not going to happen again because I don't want to lose a family that says we didn't make progress. And so with that is just highlighting it and showing parents the baby steps once again. I think parents sometimes I'm a parent now, sometimes we get lost in the sauce and we don't see it, right? We don't see the little things where, oh shit, he wasn't doing that 2 months ago. And now 4 months later, I'm yelling or telling him something else. Like, right. It's like, I know there was a mom, I think she was upset about, I can't remember what exactly it was, but I was like, hey, mom, did you notice that, Jake is now like throwing his food away and wiping down the table? She was like, wow, I never really noticed that. And I was like, yeah, like that was one of your biggest concerns and we worked on it. And so let me bring it up and show you like, hey, it's working. Whatever you guys are doing is working. Whatever we're doing is working. And it's all relative, right? And so I think as clinicians, we need to highlight things a little bit more with families and take them out like, okay, cool. Hey, let's take a step back from like training. Let's take a step back from in vivo implementation and strategies. And let's go over our game plan. You told me 6 months ago you wanted 1, 2, and 3. Well, he's met 1, he's met 2, and he's partially there for 3. And that gives parents like, oh shit, like you're right. Like we are doing good. We know what we're doing, right? And we are making progress. So I think highlighting it more as clinicians to parents kind of gives us more of that, kind of buy-in and more of that like, okay, cool, we are headed in the right direction.
Nick, you have a question?
I got a couple questions, bro. Like
Go ahead.
I got questions.
Yeah.
Listen, I keep them in the clip. I got 25 rounds for them all day. But thinking about the future, where do you see specifically, I'm saying this, choosing my words, specifically for the African-American population inside of the ABA space? So I know that 4%, I'm talking about this 4%. Where specifically do you see that group going in the next 5 or 10 years? Does the cultural competency change? Do we see growth? And to piggyback off of that futuristic talk, like how do you encourage more young African Americans to get in the space? I know you had talked about the football earlier, but is there something more linear that BCBAs that African American can do for that group to increase the numbers moving forward? So let's 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah, I think growth already, even with BMBA, right? I know shout out to Jaron Trotman, the founder of BMBA. He started it with just an idea because he felt isolated where he was at and where he started. And obviously when he created this, I don't think he understood the ripple effects so that it would have nation. And so obviously a lot of our members are down south or on the East Coast. There's a few of us on the West Coast, but the more that we network, the more that we're visible and the more exposure, like we said, our numbers are already going from our first conference that was virtual 2 years ago. And so I know our numbers are going to explode in September of this year because we already had great feedback from our in-person one in Atlanta last year. So I don't see anything stopping us from growing. I see when I'm on, the monthly calls when I can be, we're talking about next level. We're talking about new ventures. We're talking about AI. We're talking about, just the space where the world is heading, right? AI and technology. We have a brother in the space that is creating his own AI kind of format or business, I want to say business structure, right? And I think it's one of the first Black-owned ABA AI kind of structure. So he's riding that wave, right? And so the more of us that ride that wave and the more visible and exposure that we do have, I would say the possibilities are endless, but that also wanted to kind of bring me back into a kind of what Travis mentioned earlier, right? Of like sports and music and things like that. I think once again, going back to our roots as Black men, we were taught, right? Sports or music, right? That's the two things we grew up. basketball or football, right? You're gonna use your athleticism to get you to where you want to go or to where you need to go. Where now we're doing the generational switch. Like, no, you can be the brainiac, right? You can be the next AI founder. You can be this or you can do that. And so how can I adjust and make sure that I'm caught up in this wave where when I am talking to high schoolers or where I'm talking to undergrad students that aren't going to make the league or go overseas, it's like, okay, cool. Hey, bro, plan B is just as impactful. It's probably going to be more impactful when you work with your community than if you are, playing basketball 82 games a year or, playing football 16 games a season, bro. I guarantee you your impact, or if you want you want to talk legacy as a father, your legacy is going to be more impactful on how you impact others. So let's take an ABA class, right? Take a psychology class, right? It's all interconnected. It's all interwoven, I would say, because like I said, that first psychology class, my mind was blown. I was like this really makes sense because ABA is a life hack now that I've understood, and I always claim that I should trademark it, but ABA is a life hack, right? I don't care if you're on the spectrum, off the spectrum, training your dog, talking to the neighbor's kids. I can use any behavior strategy to affect future behavior. Like, I have that skill as a BCBA and as a clinician, right? And so that growth is not only going to happen in ABA, Nick, but it's going to happen in sports. It's going to happen in education. It's going to happen in so many different arenas that like I said, I think our possibilities are endless just because ABA is no longer autism specific, right? It's no longer Rain Man, right? Everybody thinks Rain Man and Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise.
Oh my
Like,
God.
it's not the fucking 80s anymore, right? Or
Stupid, man.
it's
Stupid, bro.
autism looks different now. I think exactly. I think, oh, who was it? I want to say I don't know if it was, I don't think it was Jahmyr Gibbs. Somebody, it was Jeremiah. I want to say Jeremiah Love, the Notre Dame running back, had an autism diagnosis. I want to say, I think I heard it on a podcast or something. And so just with that visibility and exposure right there, that's just going to open up a new arena for him to maybe go into sports management or sports agency or sponsoring or having his own company of neurodivergent sports clients, right? So we never know. ABA is a Swiss Army knife. We can go wherever, whenever, however they want it. We can cut it up and dice it up and serve it up to you on a platter. So it really
It
don't
does.
matter.
It also doesn't hurt that I've seen some BCBAs making a 100,000 a year. Some of
Facts.
them.
So
Yeah,
Listen,
something nice.
listen. If them young people don't want that money,
Literally. I told somebody had asked me, I was actually talking to Miss Lopez, one of my guests, my last guest, and she was like, Mike, how'd you get started with, why'd you want to become a BCBA? I was like, I'm gonna keep it 100. Nick knows I'm gonna keep it real all the time. And I was like,
all
the
the
money.
time.
I was like, I saw 6 figures and I was like, let me go get that because I like to travel. Obviously, I didn't have my son at that time and I wanted to make money. So give me that money. And I'm going to, like I said, keep on going here because obviously I love what I do and the impact that I've made. But I want to get paid for my services as well too, right? We got bills, we got places we want to go and things we want to buy. 6 figures was definitely something that was nice when you see it come across your Indeed profile.
Yeah. I had one other question for you. Everyone I know who's had kids in ABA has discussed turnover. Turnover is still significant. The burnout is real. So just my question is, how do you re-up? How do you re-energize and stay in the battle given how challenging it can be with families and the kids you're working with? How do you keep that energy to stay in the space?
Yeah, same thing. I'm dealing with that now, to be honest. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. I think what I've found to be effective is usually I ask either staff or my supervisors, why are you here? What do you? Oh, I just found it. I just applied. I saw maybe 80,000, 75,000, and I'm fresh out of college. Okay. Well, that lets me know how much to invest in you and what you think about this field. But if I ask you like, hey, because my little brother was on the spectrum, or because, my neighbor's son that came over to my house was on the spectrum and I really loved working with him. Wow. Okay. So where do you see yourself in like 3 to 5 years? I think I want to, get a BCBA or start my master's courses and, kind of gain more information and knowledge. Okay, cool. I'm gonna foster growth here. I see where my opportunity to foster your passion or your kind of even initial thought process on what ABA could be and how functional and realistic it is to you, right? Because you have a resolute image of I've worked with someone on the spectrum or my family member was on the spectrum. You have that permanent product, right? As we call it, that you have that relationship already. You don't have to foster it through experience. You already know I'm here. I have a good heart and I love what I do. And so we're just going to keep going with that. And so that's one of the first questions I ask, just to gauge how involved I'm going to be in that employee or that person's life. The second thing I do is also, obviously, if they've stayed with us, is to challenge them. I think by challenging them, it gives them new insight. It gives them new perspective. I'm like, okay, you said you wanted to be a BCBA. I'm going to challenge you here, right? Obviously, I'm a BCBA, so I know what it takes and I've passed the test and I've, been, blah, 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 blah. So if you're to become a BCBA, how would you think if you were a BCBA over this case? Would this be acceptable? Would you alter this implementation? Would you try another intervention? What would you do? I literally challenge them and throw the questions right back at them just to see and prep them for real world scenarios. Because I'm not always going to be there to hold their hand. I'm not going to always be there to foster their growth. Usually I'll stoke that fire, but you have to hold that fire. You have to run with it until you reach that end goal, or if there is an end goal for you in that situation. And then the last thing I would say to decrease turnover is take your PTO. I'm a huge proponent of taking PTO. Go travel, go see the world, go across the street, cross county lines, state lines, use your PTO, because I learned, and we all know, that these companies really don't give a fuck about you. They'll replace you in a second, right? So if you're going to replace me in a second, I'm going to use my I'm going to use my PTO before you cut me off, right? Or I'm get that check before you let me go. But no, PTO just gives you time to close your laptop and just get out of it, right? Like you said, it can be intense depending on the clients that you work with. It's going to be hard. You're going to cry. You're going to have your difficulties. You're going to be in the car pissed off because it didn't go as you expected. But if you have a trip next weekend planned, you can look forward to that time off and you're going to get that refresher. You're going to get that time to be like, okay, cool. I didn't see this kid for a week. Thank God. Okay, now I'm back in it for another 3 months. Cool. We're going to do our thing. We're going to knock it out. I got another trip planned in the next quarter, whatever it is, whether it's a staycation, a vacation, whatever you need. Take that PTO, man, because it's all about your mentality in this field, right? If you're burnt out, you're going to give, a bullshit effort. The parents are going to see it. The kids are going to notice, and you're not doing anybody an ethical service if you're bullshitting halfway through, your sessions or your lessons, because I wouldn't want you working with my son if you didn't want to be there. If I saw you bullshitting with my son, I'm going to ask you, hey, you want to clock out early? You want to try it again next week? Your energy's not where it should be or where it used to be. Either we can talk about it or you can just take the day off, right? Like, you're not going to waste our time and our money, right? Giving a bullshit effort. So I think those are kind of the factors that I use myself personally to decrease overall turnover within the field. Obviously, I'm only one person, and it's a systematic issue. But to the thousands and millions of people that eventually hear this, speaking it to an existence, hopefully it's something that can be adapted by different clinical directors, regional directors, and managers to get on board.
Man, well said. Well said. Mike, man, I want to thank you again for just gracing us with your presence. We don't give it up for Mike once again. Once again, give it up for him. So, Mike, man, where can the people find you at?
Yeah, across all socials, man. The podcast. The Parent Trap LLC is my title and my handle across Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. I'm on, I think it's LinkedIn or Indeed, one of those two, but I'm rarely off of that. But yeah, my main is Instagram. I think I have a Facebook page, but Facebook is hella wonky nowadays too. So yeah, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok are going to be kind of my main areas to get in touch with me. Send me a DM if you need to. But yeah, that's where I'm at the majority of the time.
All right, man. Well, thank you again, Mr. Michael Reynolds Jr. Hey, appreciate you guys. Hopefully you tuned in, saw a great episode. just hit that like and subscribe button. I don't know what you're waiting for. Just go ahead and do it. I don't know why you playing around. Just do the shit.
Yeah. And last thing,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for this platform and for you guys' willingness to step out and be vulnerable. Every time you guys have this podcast, every time you guys speak, right? It's another person that's like, okay, cool. They're relatable, right? As Black men, we were taught to be strong and stubborn, right? But it's cool to be vulnerable. It's dope to be vulnerable and spill your guts and talk about it and say, yo, Trav, bro, I had the worst weekend this weekend. My son was wilding out, this, and that. Hey, Dr. Lonnie, my son just got diagnosed. Like, what would you say helped you through that process, right? Or reaching out to Tyrone if it's, a marital situation. How did you and your wife kind of, get through these episodes, right? So just kind of picking and choosing and who you're talking to and how it's all relative makes it so much easier for one person to get through that process. And like I said, after that is just exponential. So I take my hat off to you guys. Jerron told me about you guys prior to even meeting you guys. And I immediately did my Googles and follows and did all that. And so, like I said, I was lucky to meet 3 out of the 4 horsemen, but I can't wait to connect and meet you guys in person, in the near future.
Absolutely, man.
Definitely.
We appreciate you being here. And again, we about uplifting people, man. We're not about dragging them down. So, hey, this is AutisHim, Black Fathers and Autism, and we out.
I love you, Heartworm.